All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Run with the Wind, episode 20.
We're into the Ekiden. Got our first three runners, gone through their segments and everything.
Yep.
And now, on to the part where there's probably going to be a lot more struggle.
Yes, indeed. We've got our order right here.
Yes.
We've got Prince, Musa, and Jota having gone through their bits there. We have Joji, who's going to be going through his soon.
Yep.
Or at least finishing his. And then we move on to Shindo. Shindo,
Right.
our boy who is sick still.
Yep.
It's going to cause him a lot of problems.
And he
of
has
the respiratory kind.
the incline segment.
Indeed.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Hopefully that doesn't cause
Hardest bit of the
complications.
race in terms of the environment.
Right.
Hopefully,
Yeah.
Yuki will be able to put in 100% for this year to make up for the time that we'll lose on Shindo.
Right.
But then we have two of our slower runners immediately after that with Nico and King.
Followed by our two fastest runners, which, of course, won't be this episode. But
Yes.
Yeah.
But, y'all, that means we're really close to the end. And what kind of character focus could we get by having, well, the second twin, but also Shindo and Yuki, two of the more, I would say, logical, serious, kind of more like intellectuals of the group and how they handle this, maybe. Be some cool
Possibly.
stuff there. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Shindo did it. Shindo did it, y'all.
he did it. He
Now,
actually finished.
Oh my God. He put so much time onto their clock in a manner that is absolutely ridiculous. In the practice bit that Kansei did to take last place amongst the teams that were not already preceded, their time total was 10:16:43.
Right.
They did this in 5 hours and 43 minutes, the first half.
Yep.
If we double that, you know, it's gonna be much less than that.
Let's just subtract that from that for a second, so we can figure out what they would actually need to do in order to just
we
make
can
that same time.
It's pretty. It's pretty.
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty obvious right here. You basically just have it be, I believe it'd be 4 hours and 27 minutes.
Yeah, 4 hours. Right.
Sorry,
4 hours and 33 minutes.
4 hours and 33 minutes. Yeah.
4 hours and 33 minutes. Yeah. Don't need to calculate for that. It's basically
4 hours and 33 minutes
that's
for the last
ridiculous
half.
for 5 people.
So we know that there's less flat. I mean, there's less hills basically, and
Actually-
Yuki gets to go downhill. So
Okay.
Yuki can go a bit faster there. But if we just go with the idea of 67.5 miles to travel.
So 4 hours and 30.
4 hours and
So that's 200
33 minutes.
So that's 273 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And then
67.5.
right.
67.5 miles.
Sure.
So divide that by 67.5.
That's basically 4 minute miles the whole way.
Yeah.
Like 4.04.
Yep.
That's
impossible.
That's
That's actually
crazy.
just impossible for the 5 people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're going to be slower than their original time. By far.
which basically means they're like guaranteed.
They're guaranteed to get
Well,
last place.
okay. Now, actually, let's clarify something here.
Yes.
When they ran that time,
Yes.
that was on a track. Now,
That is true.
now they were
Which
all
means everyone else will be faster too.
no. Well, I was going to say that everyone else might be slower because it's something where on a track, yes, there's a lot more people crowded around, but it's perfectly flat the entire
That's
way.
what I'm meaning. I'm saying that everyone was faster on the track.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So,
Everyone's track time will be faster.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Now, obviously, that means that it's easier on the track.
Right.
Yeah.
So
then here,
they might not quite have to do that. So it's like, okay, cool. There's
it still
variables
doesn't
at
change
play.
the fact that they have to run 4 minute miles to make that time, but that's not necessarily the time to beat to get anything
Exactly.
beyond last place.
Right.
Which, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the teams that will be in the bottom rung, basically, of this year's Hakone Ekiden are probably going to be the same teams that were,
Right.
in the seeded bit there, because the ones that were pre-seeded are potentially even faster.
But
and
one of the-
odds are faster.
Yes, but one of the things that is important to note is that in that previous situation. Now, granted, again on the track, but the difference between them with the worst time and then Tokyo U, that was 7 minutes of difference.
Yes, but there are teams that will be faster than Tokyo U that will be playing here. So Tokyo U will...
okay, that's true.
There's 21 teams in total.
Right, and those were just the 10 or whatever in the tryouts, yeah.
Yeah. Now,
Qualifier.
The team that is making it all the way and broke the record for, like, the section, that was not Fujioka's team. Which was kind of a big deal because they were saying they're like, oh, look, the previous team that I think Fujioka's on, basically, was going a bit slower in general.
Right, but that is a good point. Since all of these were consecutive running, if they gave the time for that team for this section, odds are that's around what the best team will do for the second section.
Yeah.
But, oh, man...
But yeah, this guy here for I think it was like Boso or Bosu.
Yeah.
Boso second year, Yanase Wataru finishes in a new section
record.
Okay. So the top of the top is definitely not attainable.
Right. Yeah, absolutely
Definitely
not. But Shindo actually did it.
Yeah. Shindo finished, and to be fair, the show kind of debated us hard with him collapsing and then immediately in the next scene crossing the finish line.
Yeah.
And that's my one thing about this show. I love this show so much, but that's my one thing about this show that I have kind of gripes with. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Just painfully bring it up that the idea is that he had to stop many times and he had to keep his willpower going through and time skip was just fine, but you don't have to have it be as dramatic as he collapses on his face,
Right. Well, and if he does, maybe show him getting back up.
Sure.
Like that's something that I would have loved to see. Like just as a doing the time skip, I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of get
him
that.
Breathing heavily and just crawling to get back up. Yeah, something like that. Because we know he's gonna get back up if they do it like immediately afterwards, so why try to have it be a moment of dramatic tension other than for the shock value?
Right, since they can't just have Kakeru be like, hey Kakeru, you can just run his section too, right?
Or someone else come in and, who's not even on the team, like, Hana, you can come in and run this or whatever.
Yeah, since this is the Ekiden and they don't let stuff like that happen and they
only registered the 10. Yeah.
Right, and you're right, they only have the 10, exactly. Yeah. Like, theoretically, if they had, 12 people or something, although that was for the qualifier, but, yeah. So Shindo had to finish this if the rest of them were going to actually run.
Yeah.
And he did. He did it.
Yep.
Way to go.
Way to go, man.
And in a lot of ways, it's not surprising to me because from the beginning, Shindo was the one other than Haiji who was putting the most into this.
Yeah.
Right? So
he was, yeah.
Like even more than Kakeru, because Kakeru was so good at it that he didn't have to, try as crazy hard.
Yeah, Shindo didn't come into this with running experience like the twins or even who was it, King, I believe, and Nico-chan. Or no, it was Nico-chan, and then there was someone else that had soccer experience. Well, I have it on my notes here. But basically, he wasn't coming in with extra stuff here. He was just the kind of the country boy who was in here just being like, oh, yeah, I would love to impress my family and, make them just feel proud of me to be like, I did this really cool thing there. Yeah.
And as far as ways to have tension in the middle of a race, right? Because with a crazy long race like this, right? Yeah. And the fact that it's going to cover, I'm guessing, 4 full episodes, because I'm guessing we're going to still get some of the race in the last episode.
Totally.
And the whole idea of 3-2 and then potentially 3-2, I like that. Because
in the next 2 episodes.
Yeah, because Kakeru and Haiji feel like a very fitting, have them pair for an episode, right? So the idea
and focus
that
on no one else, yeah.
Yep. So the idea that you have, I believe Joji it was for the beginning of this one,
right,
and then go into Shindo, and the idea that Joji is like, "What have I done?"
Right.
Oh,
buddy.
I was in La La Land and everything. I didn't actually give it my all, and then he suffered as a result of it, right?
Yeah, he was burning hotter than I was by the time I got there.
Yeah, I had just finished,
Yeah, I could have gone even further.
Yep.
And that's that little minor difference of Hana's, little encouragement to Jota, giving him the ability to perform even better than he usually does in practice because...
Right.
He was psychologically boosted.
And while Joji did get that eventually with the if you like her then run, that came after a lot of not running.
A long period of time that was a lot slower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So okay.
Baka.
Kakeru, Haiji, you've got your work cut out for you. Yuki.
This is your moment.
You
buddy.
bring the storm of ice, you know.
So if it snows tomorrow, this is something that could be really cool. Is that it slows down everyone else
potentially, yeah.
and if it snows and it slows down everyone else, then Yuki could be the one that's like, okay, I've got a tactic here. I know a way that I can make this a lot safer and a way that I won't fall.
Although
or have
running downhill potentially in the snow is bad.
That's
also,
very dangerous.
Also, let's just talk about the fact that since, for the second leg of it, since the second leg is all in the one day,
right?
If it's snowing and our resident boy who's doing the last leg has an injury in his knee, and you're saying the footing might be treacherous? What?
Yep.
Now, here's one other potential thing that could be good. If the snow slows down everybody, then Shindo making that bad time in the first day will mean less because
competitively.
Right, competitively, because the percentage of the total time will be less. So then theoretically it could be easier to make up for it. Theoretically. Right. You wouldn't necessarily have to go down to 4-minute miles.
Because they still have to beat the pace of the other players in order to place beyond last place.
Yep.
But still, the main thing here is that they complete the race. Now, while that's not necessarily something that's enough for everyone here, it is something that they need to do in order to give Haiji the opportunity to run here. Now, Haiji got a little bit of focus here in a really special way. One was his little interactions with Kakeru, realizing there's not really much more you can say. So Kakeru was the one that actually gave the message to Joji. Wasn't Haiji.
Nope.
I thought that was rather cool. Basically, like, it was kind of a Kakeru style of message where it was just like, what?
Yeah. If you love her, then run.
It's like,
or if you like her,
You okay, sure, fine, whatever. Yeah, I'll do it.
I love how the coach is like, it's what he told me to say. Like he's a little embarrassed to, be in the car with the megaphone and everything, and
the driver's like, okay, yeah,
all right,
whatever.
Sure.
But Haiji has pushed everyone to this point to where when Shindo is feverish and sick and his parents are like, hey, we can come take him, and they're like, no, it's okay, we've got this, he's an adult, it's gonna be all good. Haiji, of course, feels responsible.
Yep.
But this is something where they're grateful for this. And Kakeru being the one who was probably the most antagonistic along the way.
Right.
Especially because it was over such a short period of time when Kakeru joined to when the Hakone Ekiden started compared to everyone else.
Yeah, there wasn't that foundation to work off of.
For him to then go to Haiji and be like, no, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that you did this. And this is not just us on the team. It's not just the 10 of us. It's the food vendors. It's everyone else that's been helping us with the website, the sponsors, the supporters, the fans, everything.
Yep.
We're all in this together, and you just feel that camaraderie just like lifting up Haiji, like giving his wings new air, and it's just like But we get this bit with Haiji at the end where you feel like it's but I haven't really told you my backstory here. I haven't told you everything that
happened. It's not just a knee injury.
Yeah.
How did he get that knee injury?
When I was in high school track, and I was, going at this, it looks like his dad was his coach.
Yep.
And he broke, as he says it.
Right.
And
we saw what caused someone in Kakeru's team to have that same injury.
Yeah, exactly.
It was because it started hurting, right? And the coach said, what are you doing? Keep going.
Yeah. And he says, I didn't have time to think while under his total supervision, which is, okay, gotcha. So he ran every day. Eventually he broke.
Yeah.
But the weird thing here is that there's a subtle, well, not really subtle, but unspoken just implication that both Haiji and the father, his dad, the coach, knew that he was hurting.
Yes.
But it's just a question of, was it ever communicated how serious it was until it was too late?
Well, and that's the thing, is that technically it's you can only really know how serious something is once the bad thing happens, right?
Yeah.
Before then, it's just taking precautions, right? Making sure to not be stupid about it, in that it could be serious. And You don't know, so hedge your bets, right? Because your health is a serious, important topic. But, well, when you have a coach who only cares about results, like we saw with Kakeru, suddenly, it's an acceptable risk.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Keep going. But
And I love
Haiji, you might be about to do that again to yourself here.
Yes. Now, one of the things that I like about this, though, is that the implication, the general sense that I got is that Haiji wasn't really necessarily enjoying running that much when he was running under his dad, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he said later, he's like, and then once I wanted to run, I couldn't. You know, when
it's like once. Oh, you meaning like
after he got injured, the idea that he wanted to run but he couldn't. And it seemed to me like it was something where it's somehow he found a desire to run because suddenly it was taken away from him because previously it seemed to me like it was something where he was being forced to run, or at the very least forced to run in excess, right?
Okay, so let's bring this up here, because he looks up at the stars, he's having his moment of despair where he's realizing he can't run, and then he goes to Ste C, and then he basically says, unable to run for the first time, I genuinely wanted to run. Genuinely, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's a genuine desire
not
now.
some forced thing or whatever, or things like that, right? It was genuinely his desire.
Right.
And that's why this will be so important. That's why if he does push himself, it'll be different, because it's not going to be his dad's decision for him to keep running. It's going to be his.
Right.
And if he decides to break his body down in order to finish strong, it'll be because he wanted to and because he wanted his team to have a good time.
Yeah, and this is a special thing as well, because one of the things that Haiji kind of fulfills the role of in a lot of ways is the coach in this dynamic here.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of saying that he's going to do this the right way by sharing the dream with teammates who earnestly want to run.
And that's
except this is the thing that's kind of crazy, is that over the course of this time, he's probably doubted himself quite a bit, because he's literally Griffithed his way into making them run with him by, like, as he says, bending them to his will.
Right. He straight up threatened Prince, like if you want to stay here, you got to run.
Right.
But at the same time, he made them the meals. He did everything to try and be as supportive as possible.
Right. But I find it funny that in some ways it took him until the 10th one to find someone that actually truly loves to run without any influence.
Yeah.
Because while the others were definitely on board with things once Kakeru arrived,
sure,
you can tell that they were not actually doing the running kind of stuff with that kind of intention before Haiji came along.
A couple of them might have had experience with running or things like that,
they definitely did.
But no desire to do the Ekiden.
That's not why they were here. This was more of just a group of guys basically living together.
Right.
And he just kind of joined in with
them. Sure, we'll join the club, I guess, because we need places to stay and things like that. But Haiji
found Kakeru, the one who had the perfect form, the one who was the living embodiment of what it was to run just perfectly. And he's just like, do you love it? Like, you love to run, don't you? And so he's like, oh my God, you can be my shining star, my shining example that I'll chase after.
Right.
And then that way I won't be doing this alone. So then now we're here, and he's starting to doubt himself a little bit, because he's like, my bending them to my will is basically putting someone like Shindo into the same situation my dad pushed me into, or I kind of stumbled into, because he didn't necessarily do things as well with communicating, that he was having problems with his dad and stuff. So now, he's worried going into this final stretch, because
of course he is.
Well, of course he is, but also it could be something where it doesn't satisfy in the end. It doesn't feel like it was worth it, maybe.
Okay, yeah, especially if he's putting his own well-being on the line.
But no, I mean, just Shindo alone.
Yeah, exactly, right.
Like, he could have seriously hurt Shindo.
Right. There was no question in the minds of the other teammates of, oh no, we'll be out of the race if Shindo doesn't finish. Like, no, they were saying, like, get out of the race. Like, we care way more about you than we do about actually finishing the stupid thing. Right?
Yeah.
We got here, that's good enough. And if something like this happens that takes us out of it, then okay. I want to bring up something that I just had as kind of like a crazy theory as far as the
An epiphany.
yeah, as the dynamic between Kakeru and Haiji. So there was a point when Haiji was like, no, like coach barking at you or whatever, like early on in the
Very
show.
early on, yeah.
And granted, Kakeru got quite famous as a runner, right? And he's a first year, whereas Haiji's a fourth year and everything. So it makes sense that Haiji would have heard about Kakeru back when he was famous because it was at the time when he couldn't run and he wanted to run, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But what if that kind of what if the way he was talking to Kakeru wasn't just because he heard about the article of Kakeru end up flipping on the coach and decking him and all that stuff? But what if it was also because he recognized some of the signs of someone who had had a coach that was awful? Because his dad was awful, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah.
Where they were forced to run, and maybe that got in the way of their ability to actually enjoy running.
Totally. I mean, that's something that totally makes sense after he met Kakeru, but it's not like he would necessarily have known anything more about Kakeru as a person other than the coach-related incident maybe beforehand.
In like any kind of concrete
before he actually met Kakeru.
Oh, yeah, totally. Right.
So at what point are you talking about him making that kind of connection there?
Just
Point
from
when you met him.
Not exactly when he met him.
No, but like before or after?
After. I mean,
right.
He couldn't look at Kakeru before he met him and see the whole thing of having had a terrible coach,
Right, but I think you were implying that he knew about Kakeru before he met him.
Oh yeah. I still think that's the case, but as a separate thing. Like this, the idea that I think this insight would be apart from that potentially, because if he heard about the story of Kakeru decking his coach, then obviously he had a bad coach, right?
Yeah.
But even apart from that, maybe one of the other things that could have given him insight into Kakeru's situation is that maybe he felt a bit of a kindred spirit there, not just in the liking to run, but also the fact that running was a complicated relationship, and that went beyond just the fact that he had a bum knee, right?
And he found out about this just over the course of time of him being in the Chikuseiso?
Yeah, like he just got sort of a sense for it, right? Because Kakeru very much was, like if we think back to how he was at the beginning, one, he was very much against the Ekiden, but he was also very reserved about, and sort of like confused by how passionate Haiji was about running.
Yeah.
And
Right. How can you have all this skill with running and yet be so negative in some ways surrounding running when it's not like perfect or something?
And given how fast Haiji was, and given that the negativity that he got towards this thing that he really cared about, or potentially could have really cared about running, came from one of the other big sources of strong emotional impact, whether positive or negative, in his life, in this case his dad, I would not be surprised at all if that was something where once he sees someone else who has a similar sort of experience, he'd be able to smell that. He'd be able to see it. He'd be like, yeah, that little way that you pull back or you flinch when I mention running, or the way you like stay on the edge of the room, or I don't know.
So what you're basically saying is you've now figured out why he said to Kakeru way back when, there won't be any coach yelling at you.
Or at least a theory, because I think it
makes sense.
The obvious explanation is that if Kakeru did something as robust as flipping out and
decking his
coach,
he would have heard about that.
That'd make some waves, right?
Yeah, especially if he's still in contact with his father. If Haiji is, then he ends up hearing about that through the grapevine, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. But
very possible.
Oh man, like I was already emotionally invested in Haiji's section and his story and how his section of the race would go.
Right.
But the fact on top of this that there's this stuff with his dad, oh man. Like, oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
But for next episode, we've got Yuki and Nico-chan and King and oh boy.
Oh my god. Those three getting to basically show off that they're kind of the old guard that are gonna give the young, bucks with their pep and their step a run for their money and be like, oh, no. We will not have the sun set on us today. We will rise and rise again.
We will avenge our comrade.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. And I love the idea that if snow is something that falls tomorrow, then we could get some cool terrain advantage with regards to the three of them.
Yep.
Potentially being able to handle that. And of course, Yuki being the first
It would
one
be
to run.
it would be
It's
fitting.
poetic.
The name doesn't necessarily have to mean that he gets like a I ignore difficult terrain caused by natural non-magical snow, but but it'd be pretty cool.
It would be pretty cool. Yeah. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access. You can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
We stream every weekday. The info's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.